History Secrets.
There is a question that appears repeatedly in debates about social inequality. Why is it so difficult to escape poverty? Many explanations tend to focus on individual factors: hard work, talent, discipline. But some scholars propose a different approach to understanding this problem: game theory. Game theory analyzes how people make decisions when they are placed within systems of incentives. It shows that many human choices do not depend only on individual will, but on the social environment in which a person is inserted. From this perspective, society can be seen as a set of different games, and each social group ends up learning different strategies to survive within these games. In many contexts, low-income individuals live in environments where the main survival strategy is to obey authority: bosses, police, institutions. Challenging these structures can bring immediate and dangerous consequences. For this reason, behaviors valued in this context tend to be different from those valued in more privileged environments: following rules, avoiding conflict, adapting quickly to orders. These skills can be essential to maintain stability in vulnerable situations. In environments with greater economic security, the game changes. People with more resources often interact in environments where negotiation and debate are valued. Instead of simply obeying, individuals are expected to argue, question, negotiate decisions. These differences end up influencing even how families raise their children. In more vulnerable environments, many parents prioritize teaching obedience, respecting authority, avoiding problems, maintaining stability. In families with greater economic security, education may emphasize other skills: debate and self-confidence, ability to argue, negotiation. None of these strategies is necessarily right or wrong. Each represents a rational adaptation to the social environment in which the family lives. The problem arises when these strategies produce very different social trajectories over time. Children raised to obey may have more difficulty in environments that require negotiation, while children trained to argue may feel more comfortable in competitive institutions. This type of dynamic helps explain why social structures can become very rigid. Even when individuals want to change their social position, the incentives around them can make that change difficult. In addition, leaving a social environment often involves significant risks: abandoning a community, migrating to another country, entering unfamiliar environments. These decisions can offer opportunities, but they can also generate losses and uncertainties. Historically, some of the main forms of social mobility involved exactly this kind of risk: migration, marriages between different social classes, or, in more extreme historical contexts, participation in wars or revolutions. These paths could open opportunities for upward mobility, but they also carried significant dangers. Not everyone was willing to take these risks. For this reason, many scholars argue that social mobility depends not only on individual effort, but also on institutional structures that expand opportunities: accessible education, dynamic labor markets, inclusive public policies. When these structures function well, individuals have more possible paths to improve their social condition. When they do not function, barriers become more rigid. Even so, history shows that individual trajectories can vary greatly. Some people manage to overcome these barriers. Others remain trapped by the limitations of the environment in which they were born. Perhaps the main lesson of game theory applied to society is this: individual decisions rarely happen in a vacuum. They are shaped by the incentives and risks present in the social environment. and understanding these incentives may be essential to understanding why certain patterns of inequality persist across generations. When we analyze social mobility through the lens of game theory, an important conclusion emerges. People do not always choose the path that offers the greatest potential gain. Often, they choose the path that offers the lowest risk. For many families living in difficult economic conditions, stability is an essential value. Avoiding conflict, maintaining stable social relationships, preserving community support. These choices can increase the chances of survival in the short term. But at the same time, they may limit opportunities for social transformation in the long term. This happens because many paths to upward mobility require the opposite. They require risk. A classic historical example is migration. Throughout history, millions of people have left their home communities in search of new opportunities. They changed countries. They changed cultures. They completely changed their social environment. This decision can open doors, but it also involves deep uncertainty, distance from family, cultural shock, possibility of failure. That is why not everyone is willing to make this kind of decision. Another historical path of social mobility was marriage between different social positions. In many societies, family alliances were used to improve economic position or status. This type of strategy also appears in various social systems throughout history. There were also more dramatic mechanisms. In many historical periods, wars produced rapid changes in social structure. Individuals who demonstrated military skill could receive higher positions, land, titles, influence. But again, this path involved extreme risk, the risk of one's own life. These examples reveal an important pattern. A large portion of social mobility routes require decisions that challenge safer behavior. They require leaving the zone of stability. For this reason, some scholars argue that social mobility also depends on specific psychological traits: high tolerance for risk, intense ambition, willingness to face uncertainty. These traits are not equally distributed across the population. Many people prefer stability, security, continuity with the community where they grew up. This preference is not irrational. On the contrary, in many contexts, it represents the most prudent strategy. That is precisely why social systems can become very stable over time. Even when opportunities exist, few individuals choose high-risk paths. In addition, factors such as luck also play an important role. Unexpected opportunities, scholarships, decisive encounters, specific historical moments. These elements can profoundly alter individual trajectories, but they are rarely fully predictable. By observing these dynamics, some thinkers suggest that the real challenge of modern societies is to expand the number of safe paths for social mobility: accessible education, open labor markets, inclusive institutions. When these structures function well, individuals do not need to rely only on extreme risk or luck. They can build more predictable paths of growth. This may be one of the greatest political and economic challenges of the contemporary world: to create systems where talent and effort have more space to flourish. Because in the end, social mobility does not depend only on exceptional individuals. It depends on structures that allow more people to have real opportunities for transformation. The search to understand the past has always been part of the human journey. We explore ruins, decipher ancient inscriptions, and investigate forgotten accounts. Each discovery expands our understanding of the civilizations that came before us. But it also reveals new questions, questions that continue to drive our curiosity. Because history is not just a record of the past, it is a continuous path of discovery. because some secrets of history are still waiting to be revealed.